Good evening. My name is Dr. Jeff Weiss. I'm the chairman of urology at SUNY Downstate Health Science University in Brooklyn, New York, and just had the pleasure of chairing a symposium on Nocturia that pertained to Nocturia as a circadian dysfunction. We talked all about the basic science underpinnings of Nocturia. We talked about the nexus between Nocturia and sleep, Nocturia and cardiology. We have a beautiful new paradigm for evaluation of Nocturia that centers around an antecedent electronic app that gets most of the questions that ordinarily would be asked during an initial patient visit. And we talked about some of the research, clinical research that we've all been involved with that has been done in the recent past and perhaps will be continued on in the future. So I'll start with my colleague, Dr. Donald Bliwise, who's a professor of neurology at Emory. And Don, what do you think about the session?
Well, I think it was very good. You heard a lot of different kinds of data presented here, both human clinical data, basic science work, all relevant to the biologic clock and how Nocturia really could represent a dysfunction of the circadian timing system. Some of the animal models, I think you presented some data from some other groups that did, I think, very important. We heard about diurnal variation in blood pressure or lack thereof associated with Nocturia. So I think from the standpoint of this disruption of perhaps excess urine production at night or excessive voiding at night, looking at the chronobiology of this condition is important.
Well, that's a fantastic summary, Dr. Bliwise. And Dr. Tom Monaghan here, who's with the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, and a very well-known researcher in the Nocturia area. Tom, what do you think? How's your experience with this so far?
Well, it's been a fantastic opportunity to take part in this session today. My role was bringing together some of these future directions and trying to summarize everything that we had discussed at the meeting. I really liked one aspect of our presentation was that everybody from their diverse perspective, whether it be the sleep Nocturia nexus, the basic science nexus, really made the effort to bring the clinical context to the forefront. I thought Dr. Bliwise did an excellent job of that, really honing in on how we can take these themes and apply them directly to patient care. And I think that's really, really important as we're growing and developing our understanding of this complex etiology of Nocturia, to remember to do it in such a way that's really patient-centered and makes sense and applicable to general current practice. So I was really happy that our group of really diverse speakers, even with our diverse backgrounds and clinical experiences, were able to kind of keep that central theme of being very patient-centered and clinical-centered in our discussion today.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we had Professor Jason Lazar, who's a cardiologist, and really looking at the very important relationship between hypertension and structural heart disease on the continuum of the so-called heart failure spectrum and how that relates to Nocturia. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to do a lot of good, just as doctors in general, because hypertension is thought to be the silent killer, but in fact may not be so silent. It may be just screaming out at us based on the symptom of Nocturia. I also thought that the information delivered by Professor Bahara Vahabi, looking at the possibility that the bladder itself is an organ that may absorb water and electrolytes and substances, something that's been known, but very little research has been done until maybe the past 7 or so years, looking at the various models, such as the knockout mice model, which removes a certain exon from messenger RNA and turns these wild type of animals into really animals that have nocturia and nocturnal polyuria. It's an incredible model for us to study and hopefully learn more about the actual biophysiology of nocturia that, of course, what we're looking for as clinicians are weapons and substrates to be treated. Because it is a very multifactorial condition, and that's what makes it so interesting and such good medicine, but it also makes it very difficult because it's hard to really cure nocturia with any one approach. It really requires a multidisciplinary approach, and that's why it's so exciting that we had this multidisciplinary crew of key opinion leaders converging on this one symposium today.
I think one of the interesting areas that I talked about a little bit in my presentation was typically we view nocturia as a cause of disturbed sleep. But there's some very compelling evidence that if you are able to get people sleeping better, nocturia as a symptom will go down. And there's some experimental evidence, I didn't get to talk about it in my talk today, but sleep deprivation can actually increase urine production at night. And so it becomes a very interesting, you mentioned sort of clinical issue, how is it best to treat this condition? It's a stubborn condition to treat, as we all know. It's difficult. A lot of medications aren't really successful at treating it. Is it possible that by focusing on disturbed sleep, you might be able to work that direction and improve decrease voiding at night, and maybe decrease urine production at night? Now, sleep apnea is a classic case of a specific sleep disorder associated with nocturia. But even apart from that, and even apart from treatment of sleep apnea, it may be possible to enhance or improve nocturnal sleep, either pharmacologically with medications that focus on sleep, or even behaviorally, and improve nocturia at the same time.
And I think we've been derelict. We've lost tremendous opportunity over decades of time with all of these studies on sleep, where it would have been so easy to incorporate just a little bit of information about nocturia to see how treatment of sleep disorders affects nocturia, and perhaps vice versa.
I agree for sure.
I would strongly agree with that too. I think just as the shortcomings we're seeing from the sleep realm, we're also, as urologists, somewhat irresponsible in paying enough attention to sleep, as I think Dr. Bliwise pointed out. I learned a lot today personally from Dr. Bliwise's presentation, not just in the realm of sleep apnea, but learning the extent to which nocturia and sleep are bidirectional, specifically beyond that classic case of sleep apnea. And if there's one thing I took away, maybe sleep isn't always the answer, but I really should have a sleep specialist in my back pocket, right, on my speed dial. I think that's really makes the most sense for patients, and it's a great place to start.
Sleep specialist, neurologist, endocrinologist. So it's not just a urological symptom, but it certainly is a symptom, but it's a symptom that has so many ramifications and such a tentacular feature that affect nutrition and behavior and specific medications and timing of medications, diuretics,
Absolutely.
Other heart meds, timing of these medications. So it's a great opportunity to practice medicine, and it's such a common symptom. We know that from all the prevalent studies, that we should be spending considerably more attention on this symptom than I think what is being given at this time.